Hi, this is Randy. When we begin to realize that we are in a close relationship with someone who is extremely toxic and abusive, we don't know that it's called narcissistic personality disorder or malignant narcissism. We just know that things are not right, and we start to believe that despite what we're being told about how much we need the narcissist and about how much we're crazy and we're at fault, something inside of us is telling us that that is not the case. And we may begin to compare notes, observe other people, and start realizing that this relationship is not normal, and that we're being actually hurt. We may have come from a strong position when we met the narcissistic person, and we've somehow become weakened without really realizing it, gradually. When we recognize we're with this toxic person, there's all sorts of things that, there's a process, there's a lot of self-examination, there's fighting, there's walking on eggshells, there's suppressing one's own feelings and emotions, there's running on the hamster wheel trying to please, and nothing seems to work. And when we finally figure out that we must leave this person, we must get away from this person, it's nightmarish, and it's not supported by society, especially if it's a parent or a family member. Even if it's a marriage, it's not supported by society because you may have children, and people frown upon divorces. I know they're common, but they're still not something that you want to say that you had to do, that you had, they're not something to be proud of. It's still a mark against you in terms of, you chose badly or your relationship failed. So you start realizing you may need to be separating, and you go through all the stages, and let's say you realize that you have to go no contact, and you may battle through that for weeks, months, or years to go no contact, depending on how much outside information you're able to get, how much strength you're able to gather, and how confident you feel that that will be the right thing to do, and then how independent you are in terms of being actually able to leave the narcissist due to finances or minor children together. So you leave the narcissist and you try to go no contact, but you can't. You go low contact, and then you go back and forth to contact, and you get spun back into their web, and then you finally break out of that. I mean, as you can see, this is a long process of discovery here. When you finally start seeing the narcissist for what they really are, it changes your whole view of the world, not just the narcissist. And in a backwards sort of a way, it's the narcissist who pushed you to see the world is not how you thought it was. And in a way, I'm proposing that the final result of knowing that the world is not the way you thought it was is actually a good thing. It's very hard. It's life-threatening, soul-crushing, and scary. But what happens after you realize that this person has got to be out of your life in order for you to be able to function adequately, and in order for you to eventually thrive and express your personality. You get them out, and then you have to deal with the flying monkeys. So you also have to push all of them out. And these are family and friends. You didn't even have any idea that they were going to be narc normalizers, sympathizers, and enablers. And then they turn out to be. Most of them. Maybe even all of them. It just makes everything so much worse. And you let go of the friends and family eventually. Because you've got practice, you've done it with the narcissist, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad to just go ahead and just cut each one of them off one by one. They might not even understand why. At the same time, you're having to cut off the media too. You're having to not watch television because you start seeing the sickness in that. And it ruins your previous delusion about how our country was and how our world was. And everything is turned upside down. Nothing is what it seemed like it was, maybe even a year prior. And it all comes back full circle to us as individuals. And then we change. And that narcissistic relationship was a catalyst that forced us to change. And we become different than how we thought we were too. But somehow we also come back to how we knew we were, and how we know we are, and who we were supposed to be, and who actually we were all along. And it sounds like a paradox. We begin to see ourselves with a much kinder eye than we ever did before. And that is the key, because that's what self-love is. And you can watch all these television shows or listen to YouTubes and read books, and everyone's talking about self-love. And self-love, it's just a word. It's like you can ask anybody on the street, do you love yourself? They'll say yeah. They'll all say yeah, they do. But you really learn what it really is when you experience it. It's not just a word anymore. It becomes a way of life, and it's that kindness that you show yourself and demonstrate toward yourself all the time. You demonstrate kindness toward yourself for negative thoughts, for being angry, for wanting revenge, for overeating, for everything. You demonstrate kindness to yourself, and then you start knowing and experiencing what self-love is. And somehow you realize that you're the only one who could have ever really, really loved yourself like no one else can or ever will. And it's kind of startling, because you would hope that your parents had done that, and you had hoped that your marriage partner had done that, but you realize they didn't, and they couldn't. So you go inward and you get very strong. And once you get strong enough, you're able to go back out in service. And this is what we see with the YouTube channels, because we've come full circle with the experience, and now we're engaging in our own self-love, but it's a healthy self-love. And we have the empathy. Sometimes we've had too much empathy, and we're learning to balance it. We're learning to discern things. We're very careful about making assumptions about certain things, because we've seen how assumptions have been made about us, and we see how hurtful it can be. We see many different points of view about the same event. We start to be able to look at all views instead of making quick judgments and assumptions. Not necessarily about the narcissist, because you know they're just like warped clones and they act the same. But we get that down pat, and then we can even understand more subtleties about things that are really going on in the world, and we question them, and we know it's not the way we thought it was. Try to figure out how it is, and you know, sometimes we just say screw it. We don't know how it is, and we're not going to be able to figure out. Let's move on. Let's just go out in nature. Let's do something for ourselves. We aren't going to solve all the world's problems. Let's start with ourselves. Let's solve our own problem by loving ourselves and doing what's right for us. Because what the narcissist does is they are constantly in a state of lack, a spiritual state of lack. That's where the victim is, and that's where the selfishness is, and that's where the perfectionist is, and the person who's always trying to suck someone else, and the person who doesn't self-love and doesn't generate their own energy and has to steal yours and has to put you down to feel better about themselves. It's because they operate from a constant state of lack. And that constant state of lack is extremely it moves you so away from who you really are that narcissists forget who they really were when they were born, and they've lost themselves. They've lost themselves, and they never can get themselves back. So there's no point in anybody really trying to help them. The second part of my video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about operating from lack or operating from abundance. And I'm going to talk about opportunities for victims to become survivors and teachers. Thanks for listening.